Michael Smith is an avid map collector, windsurfer, kite sailor, and food ambassador who has cooked around the globe. He graduated with honors from the Culinary Institute of America in New York, and he now writes award-winning cookbooks and hosts a new web series, Chef Michael's Kitchen. It is my pleasure to welcome Michael Smith back to Studio 4 to tell us more.
Thank you. Good to be
So
here.
you've left the inn at PEI.
The Inn at Bay Fortune, yeah, that's like several lifetimes ago.
About 15 years ago or
Yeah,
something like
yeah.
that. And you renovated the kitchen at
My
the
home kitchen, sure. You know, I think back to those days at the inn. They were good times. They certainly were. And I still live in Fortune on Prince Edward Island. I'm very proud of our little community. But that's really ancient history for me. You know, for me, cooking sort of began, well, it started about 9 years ago when the world's toughest food critic moved into my house. He's 9 years old now and lives just down the hall. And I guess I'm one of those guys that saw the light when I became a parent.
Saw the light how?
Well, think of it this way. I'm very proud of my chef's credentials, if you will. I'm very proud of all that I've achieved. But I have to say that all those years, you spend all that time cooking food for anonymous strangers, and the discourse is always about a commercial transaction, and you sort of pay short shrift to health and wellness and all of those things. And then you become a parent, and now you're responsible for somebody else.
Sure.
And all of a sudden, everything changes.
And you said before, you have to pay attention to trends and truffles, and I think somebody called it porn food.
Food porn, sure. Well, here's a book full of food porn right here.
Food porn, but you know what I mean? It's too fancy, it's too stacked, it's too hard to prepare. It's not simple, and you're a keep it simple guy. Keep it delicious, keep it simple.
I am.
What does that mean?
Well, it means a lot of things. You know, again, I'm proud of what I've done as a chef, but that's just the base that I've built from. And I'm the kind of guy that learns from my mistakes. I think most of us do. And I can look back at all those years as a chef and say, you know, a lot of that was about this sort of striving for perfection. And I don't think there's anything wrong with that in professional cooking, but that's not what we do at home. Not at all. In fact, it's ruinous at home, this idea that there's perfection at all, that we're even thinking about perfection. I think it takes so much energy out of us.
Sure.
And better, look, if you burn the chicken, just flip it over. Big deal.
Okay, you just create. Get lumps in the gravy, what do you do? Lumpy gravy.
Serve it, whatever.
Serve it.
So there's a lump in the gravy, big deal.
Don't you have a blender? That works. So how do you get your kids involved with your food? How do you intrigue them to come into the kitchen and help? Because most great chefs I know, most great foodies I know, cooked with their moms or their dads. Somebody threw them a bun when they were 8.
Sure. You know, this speaks to one of the sort of key messages, if you will, one of the sort of things that I stand for, this idea that we've got to get our kids involved with food in a more meaningful way. And I'm not here to get on the soapbox and talk about all the problems with food in Canada. There's a lot that's so wonderful about food in Canada, but without question, we've lost a generation of cooks, and we're on the verge of losing another generation of cooks. And one of the best ways to get your kids engaged with food is to actually invite them into the process. I'm looking at these dark chocolate peanut butter cups here.
So am I.
Yeah, hey, dig in. But really, as I look at these, all I can think about is making these with kids. That's where this recipe comes from. It's so much fun to do this kind of thing with kids. You know, and really, if I've learned anything as a parent, that's the best way to get kids engaged, is to get them involved.
So how difficult is it to make a chocolate peanut butter cup? A dark chocolate peanut butter cup.
I don't think it's difficult at all. Now, I know I'm a chef, and you know, chefs always say, oh, it's easy, it's simple, you know, great, I get it. But I know in my heart of hearts that anybody can do this. You just follow the steps in the book. You do this, you do this, you do this, you get that. And more importantly, get your kids there with you. Let them be a part of this. I mean, I think junk food's okay when you make it yourself.
Right. Well, we had a fudge experiment in our house the other day. My granddaughter had to make fudge for school.
Sure.
Well, it was a little runny.
Sure.
So my daughter fixed it up, add a little more sugar, butter, whatever, but they had fun trying to get the fudge.
And what a great lesson.
Is there a trick?
Well, I mean, forget whether the fudge sets or not. What a great lesson that that it's okay to screw it up. So what? The fudge is a little bit runny, and we can come along and try this, and you know, maybe the results are stiff, and maybe they go to school. But
Right.
again, it's back to that idea that we're somehow striving for perfection in a kitchen.
Sure, it's
We're
okay
not.
if it doesn't
Just
work
be
perfectly. We
present.
said, tell them you made fudge fondue.
There you go.
Hey, why not? So if you roast a chicken wing, what do you do?
Oh, you know, I do lots of things with chicken wings. Gosh, you know, chicken wings at their best, I mean, all you got to do is just toss them with a little bit of salt and pepper, throw them in the oven, and let them rip. You know, they've 45 minutes or so, you're going to have nice crispy chicken wings. You know, so that's what I tend to do. Usually, though, they're attached to the bottom of the roast chicken. You know, that's where I see the most chicken wings in my world.
Okay. Quinoa, do you cook with quinoa and
sure.
tabbouleh and all of that? I think I
yeah.
saw a recipe because you picked 100 of your favorites,
I
right?
did, which means there's a good balance here between what I would consider to be very healthy recipes, which is the sort of food that I do every single day, and treats as well. Things like, you know, dark chocolate peanut butter cups. There is a recipe for quinoa tabbouleh in there, which is typically made with bulgur wheat in the Mediterranean sort of cuisines.
Right.
But quinoa is such a great ingredient. It's so
Ancient
easy.
grain.
It's an ancient grain. It's good for you. It's arguably one of the single healthiest things you can eat. And it tastes good in tabbouleh too.
Where does healthy fit in your cooking sked?
It's all about healthy. That's what I do. Absolutely 100%. There's none of that craft dinner stuff.
Probably
I'm
not.
being nice because there's probably kids watching this,
Yes.
but you know, none of that garbage
Yes.
in my world.
So when
None.
you make mac and cheese, have you any tricks?
Just make it.
Little butter, little flour, little...
Lots of butter. Hey,
Lots of
go
butter.
for it.
Okay. Do you butter scallops too, being from PEI? Do you baste scallops with butter?
Get the pan hot, toss them in. Sure, whatever.
What's the difference between a PEI scallop and a West Coast scallop?
You know, we don't have scallops on PEI.
You don't have
No,
any?
not really. We've got
Nova
lots
Scotia.
Oh, great ones in Nova Scotia,
Okay.
of course, yeah.
You don't
But
have any?
No, we're lobsters,
rough?
clams, mussels. That's what we have on PEI.
Really?
Offshore, of course. You know, we're that
Well, of course.
beautiful green island floating in the deep blue
Oh,
sea,
yes.
surrounded by white sandy beaches.
That's true. So there's no scallops. I didn't know.
No.
I guess scallops have to be in calmer
Yeah, our
waters,
scallops
or-
come from away.
Of course they do. So the big scallops and the little scallops. Do you have a preference?
Hey, whatever's
Doesn't
fresh,
matter?
whatever's around, you know.
Okay,
I'm
so
not a
now-
fussy guy.
Apparently not.
Just not frozen. I don't like them frozen.
But what about frozen salmon or something like that, like right off the boat?
Well, sure.
wild
and
salmon.
And we could get into a long discussion about sustainable fish, of course, and it's certainly something that we're into. But you've got experts on that out here.
Yes, we
All
do.
kinds of them. The
Yes,
folks
we
that we
do.
look up to, guys like Rob Clark. I mean, he's a king to me. You know, he's
That
the
whole
kind of guy that
sustainable
inspires
seafood,
all of
it
us.
makes sense. And, you know, a piece of wild salmon, well done, well
Sure,
cooked. Not well
sure,
done.
Sure.
Well
Done
cooked.
well.
Done well. Yes, but you make a Mediterranean salmon. We have a picture.
Sure, I
From the
do.
book.
Well, the book is full of the sort of food that I do every day. That's why I sort of call it my favorite recipes. And I do stand for a certain easiness in the kitchen. I'm just as busy as anybody else. You know, I've got a company to run and people that work for me and a life to live. And I don't really want to be spending hours and hours in my kitchen every day, you know, regardless of what you see on Food Network. This is the reality here, you know. So, you know, I'm looking for those same quick solutions as everybody else. But in my case, I need them to come from a place of healthy.
Okay, so the Mediterranean salmon has what with it?
Oh, it's basically just salmon that's sort of braised, if you will, with tomatoes and olives and onions and garlic and oregano and, you know, all those good flavors.
Okay, and roasted cherry tomato penne.
Yeah, there's a simple one. You
That's
know,
a simple one.
And what a great example of how to engage with your food. You know, so often we go to the supermarket and we've got those rock hard red round objects masquerading as tomatoes. You know the
Yes,
ones
I
I'm
know the
talking
ones.
about. But the real flavor in tomatoes, fresh tomatoes, is found in the cherry tomatoes. So get the cherry tomatoes and just toss them in the oven and roast them and intensify that flavor.
And throw them on the penne and a
Yeah,
little
and then just cook
oregano,
some
basil,
pasta,
what?
toss it all together.
Toss it all together.
Dinner.
Easy. Dinner.
Sure.
Eat it. Now, even a club sandwich can be simple. Are you a pizza guy?
Oh, yeah. Yeah, I got
Thin?
a pizza oven in my dining room.
Really?
Oh, do I ever. Wood-burning pizza oven.
I bet you do.
But you know, I'll never write those recipes. Because that's, as much as I love my wood-burning oven and all the crazy things that I get to do in there, I recognize that it's a bit of an indulgence that the average Canadian family doesn't have a wood-burning oven in their dining room.
Right,
You know?
but you,
You know, so
no
what's
one
the
I
point?
know, you're the only one. We'll have to fly to your house.
Sure.
But you do have a new kitchen.
I do. We recently renovated my home kitchen, my actual home kitchen. The kitchen you see on Chef at Home is not my home kitchen.
Not your home kitchen. Really?
It belongs to friends of ours. It's a nice house, but it's not my house.
Okay.
But my new web video series that we've shot with Food Network is done in my actual house, what we call the Blue Kitchen.
Basic parts.
And we're going to be shooting a new TV series for Food Network in that same kitchen.
You are?
Yeah.
Called what? Or does
Called
it have a
Chef
name?
Michael's Kitchen.
Chef Michael's Kitchen, again, and then this is what they call a webisode.
Sure.
Right?
Sure. Yeah, that's the kitchen right there. That's
Are
it
you
right
making
there.
the oh no, you're
Oh
making
yeah, we're making peanut butter jelly French toast. A great way to start Saturday. Yeah, that's my kitchen right there.
Wow.
Yeah, geez, we have a lot of fun in that kitchen.
I bet. And what about those knives?
Oh yeah, the knives. Yeah, I think like any chef, you know, we're sort of attached to our stuff, if you will. And in my case, I always wanted to do this. I've got this knife rack underneath one of the windows. There's 100 knives in a row in that. And what I like best about those knives is that every single one has a story. There's always a story.
Like what?
Oh, I don't know. There's, I think of one of the knives that I have that I used to use to cut tuna down in Venezuela. I cooked in Venezuela for a while, and I needed this certain shape. I was getting all these whole tuna, and it's really hard to get up into the loin end inside behind the gills and cut in there. And we had this guy that would come every week and sharpen knives on the back of his little Vespa, and he'd kick the seat off the back of the bike, and he had this sort of wheel that would spin, you know, his sharpening wheel, and he'd take a brake hose and he'd whip it around the back wheel and stand there with one hand revving the engine, the thing's up on the kickstand, and he's sharpening your knife with the other hand. I still have that knife.
That's a book.
My
Really? You could do that.
Venezuelan tuna knife.
The knife stories.
Sure, that is a book.
It is a book. It
Yeah.
is, because you could take, you remember the red violin, and the violin
Sure,
traveled all over
yeah,
the world.
yeah,
and
yeah.
you've traveled because where have you cooked? Manhattan, London, Caribbean,
Sure, Canada.
Canada.
You know, that's
That too.
that's.
Were you born in New York?
I was born in New
Or
York.
schooled in New York?
Born and schooled in New York. Yeah,
Really?
a little bit in Europe as well. Proud Canadian though, you know.
Well, what did mom and dad do to take you
My
from New
dad
York?
is a minister, actually, an Anglican minister. Yeah, They call
Really?
them Episcopal in the States.
Yes,
My
you're.
mom was a high school librarian.
So you were an Episcopalian.
I was.
Oh, he was. His dad's still alive?
Oh yeah, Dad's still going
Still
strong.
alive, and he knows
Sure.
that you've fallen off the.
Well, do we
Pew?
want to have this conversation?
Sure.
I don't know that you'll ever meet somebody more spiritual than I. I'm very proud of that, but I strongly believe that religion gets in the way of faith often.
Okay, so
big
mainline
time.
religion isn't your thing.
Not at all.
The
I don't
structure, the
think that
church is
religion
not your place.
That faith is something you express for an hour and a half on Sunday morning. I think faith is something you express in all aspects of your life, 24/7. That's how I conduct myself.
Sure,
I'm very
it's-
proud of that.
It's compassion, and
Sure.
it's all of
Sure.
that.
It's not just
and
words. You
No,
know,
because
it's
w-
actions.
those of us who had to go to the church
Sure.
know that there were some people in church who weren't there because
Of
they
course.
were spiritual.
No, not at all.
Not to be judgmental in
No,
any
we're not
way.
being judgmental. My dad hates when I say this, but I feel like I got all the religion I needed by the time I was 18 years old. I got my lifetime's worth. I'm done, I'm out, I'm moving on.
You're moving on. Now you're at the religion of the wood-fired oven.
Yeah, perhaps.
Perhaps.
Worshipping at the hearth of healthfulness.
Why not? So are you doing more at Barbara Joe's tonight, or
Yeah,
are you
yeah,
done?
we've got a signing there. And one of the things I like about Barbara Joe's is that she's so giving and caring. It's not just about all the folks that can afford to come and buy the cookbook.
Right.
We always bring students in as well. So we'll have a whole bunch of cooking school students there for an hour in the afternoon. And
Great.
just talk about food and what it's like to be a professional chef and all those sorts of things.
Who does your pictures in here? They're marvelous.
Oh, we've got a great team, a longtime team that has worked with me. James Ingram's our photographer.
Okay.
He's a great photographer.
And does he like tomato chickpea stew with
He
fresh
loves
basil
all
and
of
dried
it.
oregano? I
Let
bet
me
he
just say,
does.
it's a lot of fun working on these cookbook shoots. We eat very well, obviously.
I'm sure, and this is the real food. It's not.
There's,
you
yeah,
haven't
there's no
doctored it
tricks
up.
in there. Every single thing there is
Because everything's
edible
so
as it should
pretty.
be. Yeah.
Even the time-baked chicken is pretty.
Well, of course it's pretty. It's food porn. Thank
Nice
you,
to
Fanny.
see you.
Good to
Thank
be
you.
here. Cheers.
Chef Michael Smith's Kitchen, 100 of my favorite easy recipes.